And we're live. Welcome to Virtually Connecting. I'm your virtual buddy, Joe Murphy, coming to you from across the street from OpenEd 18, where we're talking about open education, open resources, open practices. Robin, can you introduce yourself real quick?
Yes, I'm Robin DeRosa. I am talking to you live from the exciting backwoods of rural New Hampshire. And I'm excited to be here because Angela's recently connected me with some people doing some really great work. So the chance to sort of see her semi-live is exciting. And then I have not dug in yet, but I'm really excited to maybe hear a little bit more about the report that you guys just released, Kristina. So to me, it's an all-star panel. I don't know who that other guy is there, like what he's doing there, but.
Well, on-site folks, why don't you introduce yourselves and we can let the other guy introduce himself too.
And by that, I did not mean Sadiq. I meant Nate. You know, I see that Sadiq is here, and I'm happy about that. I just saw you.
Welcome, Sadiq.
Hello. I'm so sorry. I'm having a very terrible connection here.
I'm sorry. Do you want to say? Do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sorry.
Do you want to introduce yourself real quickly?
Okay. All right. My name is Sadiq. I'm from Ghana. With the Wikimedia Ghana user group and the Creative Commons Ghana chapter.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Welcome.
Yes, thank you. So I will be dropping most of my comment around here. So if I have to contribute anything. All right. Thank you. Nice meeting you all.
Keep an eye on the chat for you.
All right.
On-site guests, will you introduce yourselves?
Sure. So, and Sadiq, glad to see you here. So we truly have multiple continents involved in this conversation. So I'm Nate Angel from Hypothesis, the nonprofit annotation organization, and I am a virtual connecting on-site buddy, counterpart to Joe virtually, here in Niagara Falls at OpenEd 18, the 15th or 6th? 15th.
I think it's 15th, yeah.
OpenEd conference, which is kind of amazing. And I'm here with a couple of folks that I'm going to ask to introduce themselves, and then we'll start a casual conversation about the conference. Okay. Angela?
Hi, I'm Angela DeBarger. I'm program officer at the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. I've been at the foundation now just about exactly a year. My day 2, I think, was OpenEd last year. It's been great this year to learn about all of the work that's happening in open education, and I'm excited to talk with you all today.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Kristina Ishmael, and I'm a public interest technology and education policy fellow at a nonprofit in Washington, D.C. called New America. And I lead work around pre-K-12 open educational resources. So I support school districts and state departments of education in their transition to considering OER for instructional materials.
Well, I love to kick things off just by asking folks for your impressions. What are the things that you're learning about at the conference?
You guys learned anything yet?
I think the thing that makes me happiest right now is that there was an addition of a K-12 track this year. And my first Open Ed conference was 2 years ago when I was at the U.S. Department of Education, and there was no K-12 track, obviously. And there were like a handful of K-12 educators at the time. And then we've just continued to kind of see the numbers grow as well as the interest. And so when I saw the proposals go up and saw the K-12 track, I sent it out to people and I was like, submit. We must make sure that they know we need to be represented. So that's just been great. And I've been trying to support a lot of the districts that I work with, but also trying to diversify and make it to the other sessions too.
How do you know how many K-12 folks would you say are here at presentations?
Roughly around 50.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
And
that's like either within school districts or working with pre-service teachers at the higher ed level, and kind of anyone and everyone in between.
Right, that's a significant jump.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
That's great.
Yeah.
What about you, Angela?
Yeah, well, I'm really excited to see the energy around K-12 too. If you don't know about my background, that's actually the world I learned about education. It was K-12, US focused. And that's what brought me to open education actually is doing work in project-based learning and really seeing open licensing as a way to explicitly signal to teachers and students that we invite you to take ownership in this work and to adapt it and make it more relevant for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm particularly excited also to see the energy around emphasizing and supporting pedagogy and practice with open educational resources, as well as I think there's a lot of interest in research and how we can develop a more coordinated research agenda to share with each other about what we're learning in terms of impacts on students and teachers.
I know, Robin, don't you have to leave before the end of the show? And so maybe you, I wouldn't be surprised if you had a question.
Sure. I have many questions. I don't know how you feel about doing this, Kristina, but I've been putting together a consortium in New Hampshire that's mostly been our public community colleges and state colleges, which is kind of a big deal because they're different systems. But in doing that, I had to get our education commissioner on board, and he's actually really more of a K-12 guy.
Yeah.
So when he learned about everything, and our K-12 really is not doing all that much in New Hampshire. So he was like, I need you to come down and talk to the K-12 people. And I was like, oh God, I better read some things. So I was wondering if you might want to just talk a little bit about the report and, like, I don't know, give some highlights and kind of point those of us who are real familiar with open in the higher ed context, like, what should we be thinking about right now, and what are the ideas that are emerging, and anything like that you want to talk about, because it looks like that is, I mean, I opened it, I looked through, I was like, oh my God, this looks great.
Yay, I'm glad that you did that.
Was there a session on that here, or?
Not necessarily about the reports,
okay.
But we did highlight some district level work, particularly around kind of the myths that we've uncovered working with school districts. Because there are quite a few of those out there. So that's what we addressed yesterday. And then obviously some of the other K-12 sessions have covered some different things as well. But the reports in particular, so those were co-authored between New America and ISTE, which is the International Society for Technology and Education. We looked at kind of a reflective piece around Joseph South is their chief learning officer, and then I led Go Open at the U.S. Department of Education. So it's a reflective piece on kind of things that we took away, lessons learned from leading a national project like that, especially when there was no funding behind it. There was a really cool kickoff at the White House, but like, what are some of the lessons that we learned in that process, and then what are some recommendations, some actual action items moving forward, and then looking at more on the state level, because that's really kind of the focus now in K-12 education, is the state's role in kind of policy. And so what does that look like? And highlighting different things that districts have told us in this whole process. One of them is that it's empowering teachers. There's this renewed sense of purpose in their teaching, that they feel, trusted to bring the content to their teachers. They can customize it and localize it for their students. And so it's been empowering. That's one big takeaway from, I would say, 100% of the districts that I've worked with. The other is the timely and relevant materials and keeping that up to date, especially given current events. But I've helped some districts move away from textbooks that had copyright dates of 1983, and President Reagan was the president, which is the same year I was born. And unfortunately, these are still technically in the classroom right now. And so they wanted to put some more timely and relevant materials in their classroom. Imagine that. So that was another thing. And then just the overall reallocation of the funding. We have to talk about this a little different in K-12 conversations, because it's not a cost savings for students necessarily. It is a cost savings in a certain way in K-12, because there are a lot of superintendents who are like, yes, I don't have to write a check to a publishing company. But it's actually a reinvestment back into the school district, so that they can reallocate that fund or that line item back into teachers for professional learning, into connectivity, devices, really trying to make that transition to more of a digital learning environment. And so those were kind of the things that we highlighted in that first one. And then the second one it's focused on kind of 4 different focus areas that we think around sustainability of pre-K-12 OER. So we brought together some folks from state and district leaders as well as some nonprofits and researchers for 2 different convenings that were held in the spring and the summer. And these 4 focus areas kind of look at how we can potentially scale and continue this kind of movement. And so it's mentoring and support structures. So that's the first one, mentoring between districts and kind of developing that networked community. And then the support structure is systemically within the district itself, so that it's not relying upon that one person that leads the OER and then they step away, because that happens often. And then everything falls to the ground.
Death of the champion.
It's so hard to watch. Yeah. It's really, really hard to watch. Yeah. So that was the first focus area. The second one is policy. What does that look like at the local level? So the district level. Around intellectual property, it's typically copyrighted to the school district. So if a teacher creates things, it belongs to the school district. And so how do we change policy around that? All the way up to the state level policies. What are we making sure that OER is included in the definition of instructional materials? If they're a state that puts out a recommended list of materials, are we including OER in that? So that is the policy. We've identified some research questions that we would like to explore in pre-K-12. And then finally, sustainability. What are some of the models that we've seen that work really well? And how can we scale those? And we've also identified 3 different districts that are doing some really great things. And so we highlight them. And that's Liberty Public Schools in Liberty, Missouri. So just north of Kansas City, Broken Arrow Public Schools just outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and then Garnet Valley Public Schools just outside of Philly. So we highlight all 3 of those, and then kind of within the context of all of this work. So we're really proud of the papers. We did a short batch print, and we got to bring them here, and I was holding them, and I'm just like, this is so great to see them printed. So thank you for asking, Robin. That means a lot, and thank you for giving it time to read through that.
Oh gosh, I mean, that's incredible work that you're doing. And as you talk, I get so excited because I think about, the other person who got me psyched thinking about K-12 is when I hear Cable Green talking about procurement and like the shift into procurement for K-12. And I think sometimes those arguments are easier to make because the people making the decisions want to save money for themselves, not for students all the time, right? So that sense of that reinvestment is cool. And what I'm thinking about now that we're starting to see so many statewide public partnerships at the higher ed level, and then some K-12 things starting to emerge, is like, we need to yoke those movements together, because you think of what higher ed has to offer. We have like teacher certification programs, and then we've got content expertise in every single area. And in smaller cases, some kinds of sort of technology and publishing tools. It's like, we should be, creating and sharing back in, and then also using that to enhance the way students move between high school and college to shrink those gaps with curriculum consistency. And so it's just very exciting work. And I love that everybody's working at system levels now. And then I guess the next thing will be like those systems will start to talk to each other. But I really can't wait to read it. I think I'm going to learn a lot. So awesome job.
Thank you.
I didn't get a chance to attend either Kent or Just's keynotes because we were holding a virtually connecting session in the morning. And so I'm kind of curious. It sounded to me from the hubbub I've heard that Hewlett had sort of made some announcements or something in the keynote. And I wonder, is that true, or what would they be?
Yeah, I think what Kent was, part of what he talked about was our work in deeper learning and the strategy refresh has been underway this year. So deeper learning is the other major strategy that's part of the education program at Hewlett. And this year has been a process of taking stock of what we've learned over the past 8 years of deeper learning being in play, and then thinking about how we want to focus that work going forward. And part of that focusing, I think, is more explicit bridging between deeper learning and OER, or how we think about teaching and learning and the opportunities that open education can bring to that. So perhaps that's what folks are referring to in terms of any revelations. To be like totally transparent, the strategy is still like being there's still some fine tuning. We have a board meeting in early November, during which Kent will present that strategy, and then there's still a lot of work to do in terms of really figuring out what implementation looks like. And I think we're going to be trying out a few different things in the years to come, and learning along the way. Cool.
Usually we like to let the virtual folks have the floor whenever they want it. Sadiq, is this all resonating with you? I know you're a long ways away in Ghana. This may be very US specific. And also, oh yeah, there you go.
So, hello. Sorry, yes. Come again, please.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Can you come again, please?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I was just wondering if any of this was resonating with you, because some of what we've been talking about is specific to the United States. So do you see parallels in Ghana?
Okay, so in terms of open education, it's a big challenge. Yeah, and we have a group of open source advocates and enthusiasts who are ready to support the movement, and we are currently working on a project that would allow university students to be able to share their research works, and some of the projects they do on campus. Even when they leave school, they should be able to share those content with people so that people can have access to them. And so that's currently what we are doing. And we are also looking on creating a project that will recognize those who share their work or share their creativity with people in the area of music, education, and open software and other stuff like that. So we want to recognize them and to be able to encourage other people to join the movement. So basically that's what. Apart from that, I'm more on Creative Commons, the chapter here in Ghana, and then I also spend a lot of time contributing to Wikipedia and Wikidata.
Wikidata, interesting.
I'm really interested in this idea of sharing and how we can support each other more in that work. I think what I've been hearing, I feel like that's a broad challenge. There's OER that are being generated, and they kind of stay at an institution or they stay within a district. And what can we be doing, like from the very early stages when we bring people into the conversation about this, like thinking ahead to what sharing and how to facilitate that sharing when they're ready for that, or sharing in the or gaining comfort in sharing in the process of while they're learning and developing. I know that sometimes that feels threatening to people, but that's how we learn also.
I know. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, okay. That resonates a little bit with what I'm seeing at the conference, and part of it is just a feeling coming from many places, and some personal experience, that one of the things that particularly like open textbook projects seem to lack is a textbook rep. That somebody from outside the institution who can come in and say, this is a good thing. And I know that we've had a lot of success with project talks and things that still will have that bringing kind of an external expert in. That's very helpful, but I think that's one angle of it. The other thing that just resonates is that there's a Wikipedia write-in about local newspapers happening at the conference right now, and it's been interesting that while there's a lot of new work that needs to be done to get small local papers represented so that people can actually look them up and verify whether or not a particular story they're looking at is relatively valid news or fake news. But I'm noticing an awful lot of people starting with editing stubs, and I think that's another one of the communication issues that might be available, is talking about open resources in the sense that something has been started that you can expand, as opposed to encouraging faculty members to take on a brand new, completely unformed project, and it'll be an open one. And I think that might be a strategy. Pardon me, maybe I'm thinking out what I want to do at work, but but there might be a strategy regarding sharing to say, here is the kind of thing that you enable when you go down this road. Maybe you should start by doing a little bit of it instead of trying to produce your magnum opus in an open form first.
So one of the gentlemen that has been part of like our learning network for pre-K-12 is at a private independent school in Western Massachusetts, Peter Nelson. He put it best when there's no professional memory in regards to OER, OEP. You look at law and they have books for the past hundreds of years to look at. You look at medicine and they have that. And so what do we necessarily have in education? And there's been no documentation of things, and particularly in movements like this, where things are being, transformed within classrooms or practices, but we don't necessarily document that. And so one of the challenges that I've had at New America is it's a think tank in DC speak, and they believe in writing a lot. And I know my own strengths and weaknesses. Writing is not one of them. I like talking. So we've been looking at different ways for me to be able to like download information or share information. And we have great access to technology and different multimedia and formats. So what if we were to look at capturing video or podcasting or different ways to download and share that professional memory somehow? I also think of like the projects in libraries and public libraries right now, where it's the human library, and you have people that come in as experts and you get to check someone out and sit down and have a conversation with them. And so how could we do something like that to document some of these practices and share?
Right. I was thinking, maybe it was Joe was talking about the textbook reps. I think in some ways the fact that we still, to a certain degree, have this focus on cost savings and on like the artifact of the OER or the open textbook in particular, it kind of shoots us in the foot, because it seems to me what's valuable about open, it's two pieces. I think always two pieces. One is access, and the other is connection, right? That sort of sharing piece. And kind of without both of those, you don't really have what we're talking about. So it seems to me that when we're kind of, looking to bring more people to the table, I'm not really sure that we're that well served by focusing on how we do better what textbooks do, which I do think we sort of do. But I was thinking about this. Angela and I had been talking about a program that I visited last week called College Unbound. And, it's basically a college completion program for adult learners. And they focus on all the stuff that we love, cohorts, human support, like, food insecurity and sort of wraparound resources to help people go through college. But when they're looking at open, it's very sort of seductive to say we can immediately save money because these are students for whom cost is absolutely a barrier to completing education. But on the other hand, without, not to deny that, but on the other hand, I think open can offer them so much more because they're thinking about higher ed as kind of an infrastructure approach, right, to delivering college completion around cohorts of students that may be anywhere, right? And you find those cohorts and where the need is, and the college kind of flows into them. And with open resources, you could build, for example, like cohorted textbook cells, kind of, right, that can hold the community of the cohort as it unfolds. And that can include content, but it can also include all sorts of ways for people to connect. And there are all sorts of technology issues, right? But I don't think it's about the technology. I know that, it's hard to have broadband, it's hard to have devices, it's hard to have Wi-Fi. But all of this is really more about conceptualizing the connections between these learners and the commitment to access in cost and contribution and whatever. So sometimes I worry about the whole same or better narrative, or looking to publishing companies with their hugely successful profit margins as ways that we can sort of adopt in order to have success in scaling open. And I'm thinking about a slide that I saw in somebody's tweets. Who was it? It was somebody about talking about the commons, not Jim Luke, but somebody talking about, oh, it was probably Paul Stacey's slide about changing the conversation from growth to sustainability, right? So that scale now becomes about scaling so that you can have a more inclusive and sustainable cycle. So that there's no conclusion to that long comment. That's all.
Well, it really resonates with me what you're saying, Robin, about really, I think we have to say more about the benefits of open for learning and for new models of teaching and learning, and then showing other people through the stories or bringing practitioners' voices up to so that people can see what that looks like in reality, because it's possible. And that's the true vision for open.
And maybe not even just like transforming teaching and learning, which of course, if we could put that first, I would be incredibly happy, right? So I'm all for that. But also like transforming infrastructure for learning. Yeah. Like what does open infrastructure look like so that when we do content delivery, that delivery system, is truly transformed, not just more efficiently delivered, right? And that's the part that I think is like kind of exciting. That's where you can see people dreaming really big dreams, but I don't think we will get any of those to come true if we are still looking to the conventional publishing models as a model for what we want to build.
Yeah, I was thinking that conversation resonated with a couple of things. When going back to the idea of stubs that Joe brought up, I was thinking about the work that I know you've been involved in with the Rebus community. So I'm pointing across the table at Kristina because she's off camera. Maybe you should scoot around. Where there's a project to say, let's build a complete work on a given subject. Right. And I know at one point I raised my hand meekly to think that I might contribute, and I wasn't able to because I didn't have the time. But it was more of a kind of stub model, wasn't it?
No, it is actually more of a create the whole thing from scratch model.
But with multiple authors,
with
at least.
Like I don't know how many authors, like 50, 80. I lost count. Yeah, so it's an open textbook of philosophy. Yeah, so we've got all these different sections, and each section has a section editor, and each editor has like 8 or 10 authors.
Yeah,
that's
neat.
Okay,
it's huge.
Right.
Thanks to Rebus, it's working.
The other, I was also thinking when you were mentioning, Kristina, about networks of how to bring people together to share practices, like within each system and across the district support.
Yeah.
Like the models that SUNY OER Services is doing seem like they've already started to do that pretty effectively by bringing cohorts of faculty together as champions who travel. And so,
I have my little core group of people that I do a lot of email introductions. I'm like, you talk to this person and this person and this person, but it should be maybe a little more formalized, I think, and so that they do like feel some sort of, I am a champion, and we have a name for it or something. Maybe. Ooh, a badge. I love a badge.
And I mean like the real badges, not like the
digital badges.
Yeah, digital badges. Yeah, right. So you can like flip up and we are champions.
That's awesome.
Well, I know that you guys have, we took you away from the conference. We don't want to go all day. So, we're happy to continue the conversation, but also happy to give you a chance to get back to the other.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. This has been great. So is that an end to our time together?
I think we should, only because there's many other things to do here on this.
Very true. Yep.
Even for you.
Even for me. Yeah, once I can walk back over. All right. Well, then I'm going to stop the broadcast. Thanks, everybody, for joining us.